I don't like the balloons either. I don't like any kind of plane. Me either. Not it.
And then
I would be like, there's
skydiving,
no
I think.
way. He was in a plane.
I didn't tell you that I went in the plane. Oh, I was gonna say, I could have sworn I told you. What's up, Julie?
Hi.
I was in a little plane. They don't even allow it anymore. It was when I was a kid. They actually flew down into the Grand Canyon. It was actually
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
I did that in the helicopter.
Last little plane I was on, that's kind of.
Oh, wow.
cool. God bless you.
I just looked down.
What?
He's going to plane.
Skydiving was
And then my helicopter ride I took was up to the top of a glacier up in Alaska.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
That was very
See any bears?
cool. What's that?
See bears?
No, but my cousin, we were all Boy Scouts. It was a different era back then. And there was a high adventure camp out in New Mexico that we all went to. You go out there, you throw a pack on, and you pick up food every 5 or 6 days. And he got attacked by a bear, 430 something stitches in his head.
That's,
Was that on a trip that you were on?
No, I was home in my bay. A few more.
well, that's.
That's
Did he
fine.
get you a brain damage or anything?
He did not. I did not.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
he's lucky, very lucky. So. You guys ready to have some fun today?
Yes.
And what fun do you want to have today? What do you want to walk away with today?
A lot of money.
Okay, well,
Yeah, that'd be
if you're
ideal.
expecting that from me, good luck.
Most ideal.
You will make a lot of money, actually.
Confidence.
When you learn how to do this and you do it right, you practice it every day. What else?
You heard me say confidence? Yeah.
Confidence, okay. How do I give you confidence? How can I help you with
I
confidence?
gotta make myself keep doing this.
Okay.
Exclusively.
So I think the overall thing is don't let this be the only presentation that you either do or you hear. You really ought to practice this amongst yourselves. And it's not just this, it's the practicing of scripts and dialogues for prospecting. It's the buyer presentation, it's the listing presentation. It's like anything else. The more you do it, the better off you'll be at it. The better off you are at it, the more confident you'll be in doing it. That's my only helpful suggestion. Okay?
Mhm.
So I promise you I'd go over my version of this for you, so I'm about to do that. So this is all copyrighted, you do know that, right?
Are you recording?
Everybody
I feel like I'm gonna press it first, everybody lets out their phones.
How do you do the voice record? I'm gonna actually record it.
Go to settings, it should be within settings.
Because I don't know.
Or say, hey Siri, voice record.
Okay. Hey Siri, voice record. Hey Siri. What?
Siri's a hot mess.
It's in there.
She doesn't understand me. Oh, voice memo. I've never used it.
All right, Jonathan, you can be the buyer. Okay, so just to set this up is we're going to, Jonathan and I met at an open house. He is not working with an agent. I invited him into the office for the buyer consultation. We have already gone through the Massachusetts mandatory real estate licensee consumer relationship disclosure form. And we're about to go into the exclusive right to buy agreement. We will not be going into the third part of the session that I like to do. So, all right, and this is for training purposes. It'll be nice to me.
Okay. What's the third portion that you
The
like?
third is where I will go through with a buyer and I will kind of get to know them and understand their must-haves and their nice-to-haves.
Okay.
Right, and so Jonathan, I wanted to kind of move on to the next segment of the meeting. If you remember when we started, I talked about the fact that I wanted to kind of review with you how I work. And how I work is as I look for people like yourself to hire me to do the job of being your buyer's agent. And to do that, there's a contract called the exclusive right to buy agreement. You remember that conversation we were just having regarding the Massachusetts mandatory real estate licensee consumer relationship disclosure form, and we talked about buyer's agency, and we talked about how I don't like to be a facilitator, and we talked about that if you hire me to be a buyer's agent, I have this fiduciary responsibility. Do you remember all that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm happy to go through that with you again, but just for points of reference, it's this paper that I put in front of you. This is actually a contract. Remember the difference between a disclosure and a contract. Disclosure, passing of information. So that's what we did a few minutes ago. And a contract is a legal binding document. If you decide to hire me, this is the document that will do that. And what it does is it outlines what your responsibilities are and what my responsibilities are.
I have responsibilities too.
You do? Isn't this fun? I warned you that this was a partnership,
Oh,
Okay.
that's right.
right? Do you remember that?
I do now.
All right. So let's talk about this document real quick. I'd like to go over it with you. And of course, I'd like you to read it before you go ahead and sign it, because when you sign it, it's legal, it's binding, and that means you hired me, which is a wonderful thing. So the exclusive right to buy agreement, if you'll notice the way on the top of the document here, we're simply going to put your name, Jonathan. Once we finalize what your price range is, once you've been pre-approved, we'll put that in there. Your preferred location, I usually do that by town, but maybe you have you prefer to be in certain counties or a certain geography. It might be southern New Hampshire, northern Massachusetts, whatever it might be, we're going to use it to describe in there. And then a general description. And we'll get into that portion a little bit in a moment where I get to better understand what you're looking for. But here I might say, I usually do a bedroom and number of bath kind of description just to make sure that we have a sense for what you're looking for. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
All right, the first paragraph here that's unnumbered actually just says that when you sign this agreement and you decide to hire me, that this agreement is going to cover where the office is licensed. And where the office is licensed is both Massachusetts and New Hampshire.
Mhm.
The good news is, so am I. Now, just as an aside, if I were only licensed in Massachusetts, and the good news is that if you decide that you want to go into New Hampshire, we can help you with that.
Mhm.
Right, so it goes from I to we.
Mhm.
Okay. The first paragraph there is really just where it says services. It's basically a reiteration of what a buyer's agent is. And you remember what a buyer's agent is, right?
Yes.
What is it?
You'll represent me.
Yeah.
Right? And you owe me that fiduciary responsibility.
That's correct.
I remember old car. I think I remember all the points.
Do you want me to go over it with you again, just in case?
If you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So old car represents the 6 elements of fiduciary. O being obedience, so I need to follow all of your lawful instructions. L being loyalty, meaning I need to give you my undivided attention, always working your best interest.
Mhm.
D being disclosure, meaning I need to disclose to you anything I know about the property, as well as if I happen to learn about other things about the other party, but I have to disclose those things to you as my client. When you sign this, you become a client. This C stands for confidentiality. So we're going to talk about why you're buying, what your value is, and what your timing is for purchase. Those things are considered confidential. So it's just going to be between us. I'm not going to share that with anybody else.
Mhm.
Accounting just means I'm going to be able to make sure that we account for any monies that you give to me in my possession, or if I transferring monies out, you'll have a full accounting from me in my office as to any funds that we've handled on your behalf.
Mhm.
And then last is reasonable care. And reasonable care, as you'll remember, was the fact that I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily what you want to hear. And unfortunately, there's a lot of that in today's market, as we've kind of already talked about.
Yeah.
Does that sound familiar? Any questions about those?
No, I understand. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So that's all paragraph 1 is. It has all those same words in it that we talked about.
Mhm.
Paragraph 2 is the duration paragraph, and our standard length of contract is 6 months. And I'm sure you can appreciate that in today's market, when you're in a very, as I remember, you're in a very competitive price range. 6 months is probably about what it's going to take for us to get the right property, and we may end up putting some offers in that we miss.
Mhm.
We could do it all in the first shot, but realistically, it probably is going to take us 6 months. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. What if it takes more?
Well, at that point, what we'll do is, as we approach the end of this contract, I'll simply remind you that we're coming up to the end of this contract, and they simply ask for an extension.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So paragraph 3 says buyer's obligations. This is your responsibilities. Any thoughts as to what responsibilities you have to yourself and to this agreement?
I think I probably can't rely fully on you. I also have to try to figure out if there's anything wrong with the property, or you know, I still have to have some responsibility there. I can't just blame you.
You're the first buyer in 20 years that has ever said that to me. So you're the smartest buyer I've ever met. Thank
Wow.
you. So just sign. You already know that. You know this stuff better than me. So you're right. That's exactly what it is. That you have an obligation both to yourself to make sure that you've done your due diligence about the property and any surrounding areas. So if you have concerns about what's going on in the surrounding area, let me know. If I have firsthand knowledge, I'll certainly let you know. But more importantly, I'll help you find the source of that information, because I want you to make an informed decision. Again, what's my responsibility to you? I have this fiduciary to you. I have to make sure you're getting the information that you need. So it's in my best interest to help you get to your best interest of getting that information. Okay, but this encompasses everything. It talks about your responsibility to do a home inspection. It talks about that's yours. You can waive that if you want, but it is ultimately your responsibility. You have to know what you're buying and where you're buying it. Okay. What I want to make sure, Jonathan, of all of the most important responsibility that I think that you have to yourself is to ask me questions. Okay. I can always refer you back to the contract if you're concerned, but more importantly, I think I can find a resource. I'm going to be the ultimate resource for you, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's jump down to paragraph 4, which is my responsibility, right? We keep saying that this is a partnership. Sometimes you might be driving down the street I haven't driven down in a couple of weeks, or don't drive down ever, and you see it for sale by owner. Let me know. Yes, it's my responsibility to help you literally see the house and find the house, or it's also my responsibility to provide that fiduciary responsibility for you, kind of hold your hand. This is the first time you're buying a house, right?
Yeah.
As I remember. So you're here, I think, because you believe that I might be able to assist you with that process, and I know I can. And I've got an entire team that's going to be here to help you. Once we get your property under agreement, Pam and the closing department's going to also help you take your hand and walk you through that process. So we're going to make sure you don't miss any dates, and we're going to make sure you understand everything you're signing before you sign it. Okay?
Got it.
Okay, let's jump down to paragraph 5, the effective of exclusive right to buy. All that means, Jonathan, because these are legal binding documents, so they have to say it 3 or 4 times in the same paragraph. All that means is that by signing this, not only are you hiring me and my firm to help you, but you're not going to be working with anybody else. And I don't want you working with anybody else because A, that's going to get you confused, and B, it potentially puts you in jeopardy of having to still pay me a fee, even if you're working with somebody else. And as much as I'd like to get paid for nothing, I really prefer to work and earn my fee. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any concerns with that?
No, I've talked to some other agents before at open houses and stuff,
Sure.
But I never signed into them. I kind of feel bad though.
And why is that?
I'm just a nice guy, so I feel like I told them, maybe I can work with you someday, but I'm gonna need sign, so.
Okay, well,
choose someone.
if that's a concern for you, there's really 2 ways to handle it because I get the sense that you're a very honest, approachable guy, and I can see how those things weigh on you. Give me their names and numbers, and I'll call them and let them know that you're working with me, and that way it won't fall on you. Is that all right?
Oh, okay, that'd be really helpful.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that for you. No problem. All right, so guess what? Wait, there's more. Turn over the piece of paper. And now we come to my favorite paragraph of all time. It's called the payment paragraph. You know why it's my favorite? Because it talks about how I get paid. But let's remember, the wonderful thing about real estate is that more often than not, the seller or the listing agent is going to offer compensation through the MLS, and we'll get into the details of it, but oftentimes will offer a compensation to me as the agent working with the buyer in efforts to try to entice me to bring them to their property. So it's very commonly done. In fact, it's rare that it's not done.
Okay.
So the good news is that even though my fee is 3%, there's a very good chance that some part or all of that will be covered by the listing agent. And how wonderful would that be that you get my full suite of services for either nothing out of your pocket or for only a part of what you're obligated to.
That'd be good. I hope that happens.
Well, I'm going to do everything in my power because remember what my job description is. My job description is to help you negotiate to the best possible terms and conditions, the lowest price, and the least amount of money out of your pocket, including my fee. Okay, we are in a competitive market, so trying to, there are several strategies that we can employ. If we can't negotiate the price or negotiate things in that otherwise wouldn't have been in to try to offset that if there is a fee owed, then we'll try to get credits. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. It really is market driven, but you'll always know. In fact, the first couple showings that we go on, I will make sure that before we even go in the house, if there's that type of variance. If we get into this process and we've been in it for a while, I probably won't do it on every property because I don't want the focus to be on the money. I want the focus to be on the house.
Mhm.
Okay?
Yeah.
But the bottom line is I need you to be happy with the services I provide.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, what if I decide, after 6 months looking at it, I don't think now's a good time, I guess I didn't find anything I want. Do I still have to pay you if I don't buy a house?
I only get paid when you buy the house.
Okay.
So the reality is I've not had any clients do that over the many years that I've been doing this.
Mhm.
And the reason why is that unless we get some what I would call serious buyer fatigue. We've just put so many offers in, we just haven't get them, and you just want to take a break. I've had a few buyers like that, but they've always come back and bought houses with me because I think I've always been able to show the value that I bring.
Mhm.
Okay, but again, part of my job is to help negotiate deals. So hopefully, as we're putting offers in, the strategies we employ are going to help you to do that.
All right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So paragraph 7 is basically the broker's role. One, we're disclosing, right, that, or it is really up to you. You're going to disclose when you're out going to those open houses that you're working with another broker exclusively, meaning me. And in fact, I'm going to give you a stack of my business cards. You don't even have to give them your name. Just give them my card and be done with it.
Okay.
All right.
Mhm.
The second part is on me. It tells you very clearly that I'm not an attorney. I'm not a home inspector. I'm not a tax advisor. I'm not a zoning inspector. I'm none of those things. I don't play any of them on TV whatsoever. Okay. So the reality is if we need that type of expertise, I'll get you to the right person if you don't have it.
Okay.
Okay. Will I give you some insight or ask you to ask your home inspector some questions because of something I've seen based on my experience? Sure, of course. If I see something in a contract that doesn't smell right, I'll probably advise you to go talk to your attorney about it.
Mhm.
Okay, but I can't give you legal advice. I'm sure you can appreciate that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. The next one, if you remember when we were talking about on the Massachusetts Mandatory Real Estate Licensee Consumer Relationship Form, or that pink form we just signed a little while ago, we talked about this fact that my office is non-designated, which means when you hire me, you get everyone. You see, you can take a quiz and you do very well right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling confident.
Good, I love that. So that's what paragraph A just reiterates. Paragraph B is we talk about this thing called consent to dual agency. Do you remember what dual agency was from that prior discussion?
Yeah, I remember. It made
What was
sense. If I am interested in buying a house that's like on your website that you're listing,
Mhm.
that would be dual agency.
Right, assuming you hire me
Mhm.
or the firm, right? Because the contract's always with the firm. And you're looking at one of our listings that would create a dual agency. So the law requires 3 steps to occur for that to happen legally. Okay. Unlike an attorney, I can represent both parties in the same transaction, and the law recognizes that. I have to disclose to you what it is, which is what I did on the form. We have to get your consent, which is what this paragraph is all about. This paragraph is saying, Eric has told me about this thing called dual agency. I am giving my consent to the possibility that it might happen, and Eric will assure me and ensure that I sign something called a notice of dual agency when it's happening. So if that situation happens, not only have you agreed to the possibility that it might happen, I'm going to put another piece of paper, it's also going to be a different color, in front of you that says in big black bold letters, notice of dual agency.
Mhm.
You'll know it before you even go in the house.
Is that a contract, another contract, or is that more like this form?
That's more like that form. Very good. It's more of a disclosure. It's making sure that you're aware that what you consented to here is actually happening.
Okay.
And I say this paragraph is saying it's consenting to the possibility that it might happen because it's possible it might not happen, right? You might buy a house that isn't listed with our office.
Got it.
Okay?
Mhm.
Any questions on that?
No, it makes sense.
Okay. I'll come back to you in a moment. Okay.
That's his wife.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in the room. Nice to see you. Excuse my man. What's your
sorry,
question?
I should introduce her. She's on a little late.
So consent to dual agency, so if we sign this, we're consenting to it and we can decide later on if we don't wanna,
You've already consented to it. Consent means approval.
okay,
You're okay to be in that situation.
okay.
You're consenting to it in advance. If a consumer ever came back to us and said, I don't want dual agency, we'd certainly have to honor that.
Okay.
Right? We're not going to force dual agency onto anybody. Okay? Again, maybe once or twice I've had somebody say, I'm not sure I want to be in it. So we sit and have a conversation with them and help them understand make sure that they understand, because most people don't want to do something when they don't understand what it is.
Okay.
Right, so in that case, we probably didn't do a very good job of explaining it up front. Okay, makes sense? Jonathan, there's this other paragraph 8, and I excuse the typo, I'll get that fixed one of these years, where it talks about other buyers. So it is possible that whether it's myself or other agents in the office, are working with other buyers that are in a similar price range, looking at similar towns. I've been doing this, or in your case, we've been doing this for a long time. I don't even recall in recent memory that ever happening.
Okay.
Okay, but I need you to know that because there's 20 of us that are licensed here, and we're working literally all over New Hampshire and all over Massachusetts. I mean, we're working from North Conway all the way down to Nantucket. Okay,
Got it.
The equal opportunity, you've probably heard that word before, but all that's saying, Jonathan, is that I can't, as a licensee, discriminate against any of the protected classes, whether they be the state or federal protected classes. And if you ask me to, or put me in a situation where I'm required to do that, I won't. I'll literally walk away from it, and I'll let you know what's going on. I won't keep you out of the loop. Again, 20 years of doing this, I've never had that happen. This company's never had that happen.
Okay.
Entirety of the agreement, this is the agreement between us, right? When you hire me, it's just what's on the front and back of this, between the 4 corners of this page. We can amend it if we want, we can change it if we want, but it requires both of our initials or signatures on any changes or modifications, okay? And then the last part is this thing called assignment. All that means is that you can't take this contract and sell it to somebody else or transfer it to somebody else on your behalf. It's you and only you and your wife.
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's a maiden decision maker, so it's
Awesome.
she can get on this
I'm
too.
glad she finally joined us.
All right.
So, any questions on this?
No, I think you explained it pretty well.
Okay. What I'd like, Jonathan, for you to do is to take a few minutes now, and I'll even excuse myself if need be, but I'd like you to read this thoroughly.
Okay.
Because if you're the next step for us is really to get into what you're looking for and when you're buying and get into that. And I'd like to have this kind of, this procedural stuff kind of done and over with before we do that. So if you take a few minutes to read it now, that would be terrific.
All right.
Okay. There you go. Questions?
This is a silly question, but if it's like a husband and wife, only one person needs to sign off?
Nope.
Okay, both.
Who's ever going to be signing for the property needs to sign it. So if it's husband and wife that are going to sign for the property, yes.
Okay.
If it's only the husband, for whatever he's going to be signing, if only his signature is required, then only his signature is required, or the wife, doesn't matter.
Right. Okay.
I've had both.
Just making sure.
But it says buyer's name, right?
Mhm.
So that would mean there would be 2
Got
names there.
There could be 4 names, there could be 10 names,
Okay.
there are unusual circumstances, right? The other thing is sometimes you're working with people that, particularly on the commercial side, where they're not signing personally, they're signing on behalf of an entity, right? An LLC or an incorporated company or something along those lines. You really need to make sure that they have the signing authority to bind the contract. And you would do that through them providing, documentation related to that.
Is this saved? Sorry, I don't want to leave it.
Oh yeah, it's
Okay, making sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Julie, questions?
No, not right now.
Okay. You want to go through and do your own presentation?
Sure, give it a
Go
shot.
for it.
All right. All right, well, thanks, Eric. I'm glad that, you came in and that we just went through the Massachusetts mandatory real estate licensee consumer relationship disclosure, huge name. And you feel comfortable with that. We just signed it. And so now we're on to the exclusive right to buy agreement. So this is when you actually hire me as your agent to represent you. So I'd like to just kind of go through this document with you. And unlike the disclosure where we're just kind of transferring information, this is a contract. So this is legal and binding once you sign it. So that's why I kind of want to go through it with you and make sure you understand some things. All right. Any questions so far?
None
Nope,
yet.
we're good. All right, let's go through it. So the first little part is just your name. It's you and whoever else would be buying with you. we'll do the approximate price range. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So once we go through the contract, then we'll kind of narrow things down and figure out, you know, what your price range is. A preferred location. So you could do towns, maybe you want to do counties, totally up to you. And again, we can talk about that a little bit later, but just something to think about. And then a general description of kind of what you're looking for. Are you looking for a 2-family? Are you looking for a single family? How many bedrooms and bathrooms? But again, we can get into that later after we get through the agreement. So the first part of it, that first paragraph, basically just says that our agency can represent you in Massachusetts or New Hampshire. So if you find a house in Massachusetts or you find a house in New Hampshire, we can help you in both states. Questions on that? No?
Nope.
All right. So then this first paragraph, services, basically it's kind of what we went over already in the disclosure agreement that you just signed. So it's just a reiteration of what my responsibilities are to you, the fiduciary. Do you remember that? Are you familiar with it? Or do you want me to go over anything with?
I think I remember the whole thing, old car, all of that. I think I get it. Yeah, no problem.
Exactly. Good. So we don't have to go over that again, but basically that's what that paragraph says. The duration of the agency is just how long the contract is for, and our standard contract lasts for 6 months. If you wanted to go longer, you could. We say 6 months because, especially in this market, from when you actually get a house to the closing, that takes, you know, some time. And then as well to try to find a house if we have to put in multiple offers. Hopefully we get the first one right and we get it done for you right away, and then you're in your dream home. So any questions on that?
Nope.
Nope. Okay. So then the buyer's obligation. So as I had mentioned before, this is going to be a partnership between both of us. So it's not just, you know, me barking orders at you or you barking orders at me. We're going to be nice and close friends because hopefully we're getting you in that dream house. So this is just kind of giving you what your obligations are. So do you have any idea of like what you might have for obligations, or did you even know that you might have some obligations?
I didn't realize I was going to have contractual obligations. Now I'm a little worried.
No, don't be worried. Like I said, it's a partnership. So where it's like a partnership or friendship. So we're working together. So in case you see a home on your own and you see some listings that maybe I didn't see yet, you're going to talk to me about that. Also, you have some obligations just as a buyer, because you want to make sure if there's anything going in and around the property that may be concerning to you that you haven't brought up to me, that you do your due diligence on it. And of course, I'll be with you.
How would I know if there's going to be a new highway coming in next door?
Well, that's something that you would just have to look at the paperwork and try to find the right sources, and I would be a resource for you. So if you had some concerns with, you wanted to live in a very private area and you didn't want any highways or new construction, then I could lead you in the right direction to try to find those sources. So I'll be a resource to find the sources to make sure that there's nothing going on there and that you're in the right house that's for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the only thing, just changing gears for a second, is just make sure that you're placing the emphasis on them as it's their responsibility to themselves to do this. They have a responsibility to themselves. Yes, we will be the source of the source. You know, we'll point you in the right direction. I'm not, you know, we were starting to go down a slippery slope there with the, you know, you want to be in a private area and I'm going to show you, well, that could be considered steering. So be careful with the words that you use and what you're implying. Not that you caught yourself, you rounded out the sentence appropriately, but my heart skipped a beat there for a second. To take me to this private place, what does that mean, right?
Right. Okay.
So, anyway, sorry.
Nope, that's all right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so do you feel more comfortable and less concerned with your obligations as you do your due diligence, and you owe it to yourself as well?
Yeah, I get that, but I have no idea how to look up. My brother lived in a condo complex, and unbeknownst to him, he lived next to a sex offender. I don't want to be living next to any sex offenders, so please don't take me to any areas there.
So on that, you know, I can steer you in the right direction and give you the resources for you to look up whether, you know, there are any sex offenders in the area. Again, you owe it to yourself. So it's something that you want to look up because say someone, you know, we look it up and you say, okay, there's no one there. And then 6 months down the line before you close, someone moves in, you know, that's just you know, you owing your obligation to yourself to stay on top of it and keep looking up. But we'll make sure that we have the right resources for you.
Well, if that happens, can I get out of the deal then if somebody moves in that I don't want to live next to then? Sometime after I've signed a deal?
Well, once you sign the contract, it's legal and binding, so you would not be able to get out of it.
Okay. Okay.
So moving on to the fourth bullet point. So that's the broker's authority and responsibility. So basically that's just kind of, again, reiterating what our services are to you and our responsibility to you. So, you know, taking you to the different places, showing you all the listings, all that kind of stuff. Do you have any questions with that?
Yeah, I'd probably place more emphasis less on I'm going to show you property and make it less about the showing and finding the property, more about the market knowledge, negotiating skill, this kind of hand walking you through the process. Just, I liked how you said this is more about our services, because remember you have that paragraph up top that's kind of a misnomer that says services, but it's really more of a description of fiduciary.
Great.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is more about just the services that we can walk you, and then we'll walk you through every step of the way, our negotiating skills, just different techniques to try to get you into that home that you really want.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to the effective exclusive right to buy agreement. So basically all that says is that once you sign here and you're working with us as a broker, you can't work with anyone else. And I don't want you to work with anyone else because it's going to confuse you, and then you're not going to get the service that my agency and myself can provide for you.
You guys should write that down. It's a great way to describe it. If you go and work with somebody else, you're not going to be able to take full advantage of the services we provide. Well said.
Thank you. Now I have to write it down so I don't forget.
You could possibly go another commission too.
And you could possibly go another commission.
You won't. You won't get the one.
Yeah,
Services we provide.
Can I keep going?
Go for it.
Okay. All right. So do you understand that? It's kind of pretty straightforward, but if you have any questions, please let me know. Okay. All right. So getting over to the next page, you just flip it over, and this is the last page. And this is one of my favorite paragraphs to explain because it's the payment paragraph. And so it's how I get paid. So you wonder, when you get services, you buy a coffee, you get anything, you have to pay for it. So how are you going to pay for it? So we have minimum standard for 3%. And the good part of that is that the listing agent or the seller's agent always entices the buyer's agent with some form of payment. So sometimes it's paid, the fee is paid totally or a partial. So either way, you're going to get the full services of myself and my agency for just a fraction of what you would normally owe.
So I have to pay you?
Yeah.
My attorney told me that that's not, he told me that if any agent asked me to sign something and that would make me pay the fee, that I was probably talking to the wrong agent.
Well, I don't 100% agree with your attorney, although he could be a great attorney. He's also not a real estate agent. And basically, it's if you went somewhere and you asked someone for all their services, how would you expect to not get paid for your services? Let me ask you, Eric, what do you do for work?
I'm a dentist.
You're a dentist. So if I came in with a cavity and I had my tooth filled, and then I decided, you know what, my insurance is going to pay you, I'm not going to pay. And I'm not going to pay a copay or anything over it. Would you be okay with that?
No, but I just take all the rest of your teeth out. It's no big deal.
Right. So exactly. So that's kind of how we work here. So until
You're going to take all my teeth out if I don't pay?
No, we're not taking any teeth out. Hopefully you'll keep all your teeth.
We know people.
We already took all care of.
but you wouldn't want,
Neither
but you
getting
wouldn't want
so-
to, but you wouldn't want to not get paid for your services is what I'm
That's
saying. So it's very much, it's very similar here. So if I'm doing all this work for you and our agency is offering you all of these services and trying to, you know, work with our negotiation skills and our management team and all the years of experience that we have here, then it comes with a price, because no one works for free. I mean, unless you're volunteering for, you
I
know.
know that, and I actually asked the attorney about that, and he said like what you said, is that the seller or the agent always gives a fee. So if they're giving a fee, why do I also have to give you a fee?
Well, that's our standard company, 3% is the purchase. And so sometimes, like I said, it's covered in full, and sometimes it's just, it could be a fraction, it could be 0.5%. And we'll do the best we can for you. So what does that mean? It means that we'll use the negotiating skills to try to let you find you your best house for the least amount out of your pocket. And I don't want you to have to pay out of your pocket for me. So I'm also going to try to just work that price into whatever we can.
So good, so that means if we have to take money out of my pocket, you'll waive that, so I don't have to pay it? Is that what you just said?
No, I'm saying I don't want to take the money, but if I have to, I will. But for the most part, I'm hoping that we won't, and I'm confident in my team that we can get you into the house for the price that you want.
How am I gonna know?
I want you to be confident. I want you to understand that if that it is 3%, so that if you do owe something, I'll let you know ahead of time, so that when we go to listings, when we are walking into the listing, I'll let you know, hey, listen, there is a potential where you could owe 0.5%, or, you know, whatever it is. And then if we go to multiples, I probably won't say it every single time, because I really want you to look at the house and not have that be a problem for you or a hinder to the properties that you're looking at.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. So next is just the broker's role. So basically the first part is disclosure. So anytime we go into a listing or we're working with anyone, I have to disclose that I am working for you. And so that I am your broker. And the second part of it says, again, I'm the broker, but I'm not an inspector, a zoning expert, a tax advisor, attorney. Although I can give you some guidance, I am not an expert in any of those, nor do I want to be. So please, you know, I'll always steer you, say, here's my opinion, and here's what I know through experience, but you should, you know, check with your attorney, check with your CPA, et cetera, et cetera. Make sense? Okay. Yep. So then the agency information, if you remember, we're a non-designated agency. Do you remember what that means?
Yeah, I think if I hire you, I get everybody, right?
Exactly. Perfect. So that's what that first part means. The second part is the consent to dual agency. So basically what this part is saying is that you understand that in a situation, it could happen that you may be in dual agency. So do you remember like a situation that could happen, or does that make sense?
If I buy one of your company's listings, if I hire you and I buy a listing of somebody that's also hired you or your company.
Perfect. Yes. So that's all that's saying. And you're just giving your consent to say it may happen, it may not happen, but you understand that that is a possibility. And whether it's, you know, it could be highly unlikely or it could be very likely. So the next part is the declaration of agency. And so again, that's just letting everyone know, here we're working with this agent and this agency exclusively.
Okay.
The next one, number 8, and it says 8 and 8, so I apologize for that. So we have to change those numbers. It just says about other buyers. So basically, you just understand that we're a big agency, and that, you know, I have other buyers, and where you're in a competitive price range, that there may be other buyers signed on to this agency looking at the same listing. So there are other buyers involved. Okay. All right, next one, equal opportunity. So it's exactly, you know, what it says. We have to give equal opportunity to everyone and follow the fair housing laws. So we're not going to discriminate any of the protected classes. And again, if you asked to discriminate against any of the protected classes, I would have to say, no, I'm sorry. You know, by law, that's not.
But I like that she said that I did not say in my explanation, that she actually used the word fair housing. That's probably a good thing these days to be using. So, sorry.
Okay. And so number 10 then, the entire agreement and modifications thereof, basically what that says is this is the entire agreement. This is the contract, the front and back. Once you sign it, that's it. If we want to make any modifications, of course we can, but we can't do that without a signature and consent from you and myself.
Okay.
Okay. And then assignment. So basically what assignment means is you can't take this contract and sell it to anyone else or, you know, for a fee. It's just between us and that's it. And
That ever happened?
it's happened maybe once that I've heard of in our agency, but other than that, no, because we have this clause in here that says it can't happen. So it's not going to happen. And so now that we went through it all, do you have any questions? Is there anything that's still kind of not sitting well with you that I can explain further?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
great. So before you sign it, I want you to read it over. I'll leave you here. If you need a snack or coffee, I can go grab something for you. And I'll leave you for a few minutes and take as long as you want. And we'll go through the next part.
I don't need to sign it. I don't need to read it. I'll just sign it.
You don't need to sign.
Even better, go ahead.
Well done.
Yeah, that was good.
Yay.
Any comments, positive or otherwise?
Julie's just a shining star.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Star. She made me feel very comfortable. Star presenter.
Oh, good, thank you.
Nice job.
So the only, it's not a criticism, it's just a suggestion. I'm just not a big fan of the word steering or steer, just
Okay.
because it's one of those bad words in real estate. So
Yeah,
maybe
it's negative.
use a synonym like point to you in the right direction or
Okay.
guide you or just steer is
Encourage
just, is it a bad thing? No, but just it's better not to say it.
No, I
So-
understand. Guiding is better. I'll use guide.
And at the end there, when you said, "Oh, I don't need to read it,"
Mhm.
would it a way to encourage just say, "Well, by signing this legally, you're saying that you read it," just so you understand that? I would prefer.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Just so you understand. what you're saying.
Yeah, if somebody says, no, I'm ready to sign, I push back on them at least once.
Okay.
Right, because again, I'm always trying to look at it through the lens of if you're in court, if you can at least get them to admit that you pushed back on them before they signed it, because that's your standard operating procedure and how you were trained and so on and so forth, it's gonna bode better for you. Okay? And my goal is to never have any of you in front of in a courtroom related to real estate. I can't control the rest of your lives, so that's up to you. So, okay. So before we go to the next, because this can get very mundane going from person to person to person, we'll mix it up a little bit. So if we were to jump to the third portion of the buyer agency or the buyer consult, it would go something, it's the portion where you really start talking about their needs. Okay, so it might go something like this. You don't have to record it because it's fairly simple in its presentation. But one is okay, now that we've kind of gotten through this and you've agreed to hire me, right?
Mhm.
I just want to talk a little bit about process. I want to understand what your needs are specifically. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the system or the process that I'm going to suggest we use to make this as smooth as possible and as efficient as possible. Does that make sense? So, we met at such and such a house, which was in Andover. Let me ask you a question. What towns do you want to be in? Luch, what towns do you want to be in?
Kalamazoo.
Okay. Anywhere else?
Just there.
And why Kalamazoo?
That's a cool name.
Okay,
That's right to it.
awesome. So any other towns with cool names that you'd consider?
No, that's basically it.
Okay, so there's usually a couple different answers that you'll get. One will be, I have no idea. Or two, you'll get a list that's a mile long of, 15 or 20 towns.
Mhm.
So one of the things that you really need to focus on, and the reason why I start with towns is, and if it's Kalamazoo, why'd you pick that town? Right? Well, I was born and raised there, and it's the only town I'll ever consider living in. Okay, well, I probably don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out why they want to be in that town. A lot of people go, oh, Andover, North Andover, you can insert any names of towns there. it's important for you to kind of drill down a little bit, because especially in the markets that we're in where listing inventory is so thin, having one town to look in is going to make it incredibly hard to find them something. I'm working with a police officer in Andover right now. He will only live in Andover. His price range is under 500,000. How many properties do you think I'm talking to him about on a weekly basis?
Right.
If I've talked to him about 3 in the last month and a half,
Yeah.
I'd be, but we had the discussion about what are the alternatives to towns, and to him, none.
Commute to work is probably so important for people too.
Can be, right? And so it's important to have that geographic discussion. Where do you want to be and why do you want to be there? What's important to you about the town? Do you want a walkable downtown like Andover, or does no downtown like Boxford is that okay for you? Okay, so it will be important for you to start understanding what each town has to offer. A lot of times now, especially now, not so much many years ago, but there's a lot of emphasis on the school performance, right? I think we talked a little bit about that before relative to the schools. Yes, I'm interested in understanding what about the schools that you think is important, but I'm not the source of MCAS scores or SAT scores, or, you know, what percentage goes to college, and you know, graduation rates and so on and so forth. Okay.
No, Eric, I have a quick question on that. So if someone's really set on like, and I've seen it before, like I'm only living in this town, and you know the inventory, you know, it just goes too fast, or you know, whatever for their price range, would you offer them other suggestions? And then do you go to the next thing of like, what type of house? Like, would you consider a condo? Because you know, sometimes you can get them in a condo, a smaller place instead of.
I would certainly set the expectation that you're in a very tight market, and that their expectation of only looking in that one town, you know, as I did with the police officer, you're looking in one town in a price range where, one, it's so highly competitive, there's so little inventory, we're probably going to see one every couple weeks, if that, and two, when that one comes out, you better be ready to jump on it and go at it with, you know, with velocity, right? So you have to, in having that discussion with them, that dialogue with them, you have to be realistic and set the expectation for them. I am not one to say, oh, you're looking in Andover, so you should also look in North Andover, or you should not look here because now you're going down that slippery path of, am I steering somebody to a particular town or a neighborhood for my own personal reasons, whatever they may be. It's totally there. If they don't know, and if they say, well, what do you think? It's not my money. I don't know where you want to be and where you're comfortable with, but tell me what's important for you. You know, encourage them to start. I've certainly gotten to people and say, okay, you're going to leave this meeting and have homework, and your first homework is figure out what towns you want to be in and why. Or what is it about a town that's important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Because some people say, oh, I don't care. Okay, well, I don't believe that for a minute, because ultimately you will. So why don't you go think about what's important to you in a town? Is it school system? Is it commutability to your work? Is it a walkable downtown? Is it, you know, lots of open space? There's all kinds of different things that different towns have, but you need to figure that out because you're going to be living here or there. John?
When I was at the open house with Nicole in Salem, Endicott came up and I said I went to Endicott, and she said, oh, I have a friend that went to Endicott. Actually, that was a different buyer, but I mean a different customer.
Anyway.
But that conversation was pretty simple. The other one said, similar conversation, and they said, would you live in Salem? Do you think it's a nice place to live? And so I wasn't exactly sure what that I could say, but the way I went about it was, I said, because I went to Endicott, I spent a lot of time here, and I enjoyed it, but it depends what you're looking for. And I know that when you came in, you told me you're looking at the North Shore, and this is the North Shore. And she was happy with that answer, but I was thinking about like what we talked about in class and all this stuff.
So how was his answer?
It wasn't
Good.
bad. I would say it depends what your definition of nice is or good is. And
Yep.
I mean, that varies from person to person. So like, you could say that you think it's really nice for you, but it all depends on what their definition
It's a very
is.
subjective thing, right?
Yeah.
It's like clothes. you might like Brooks Brothers, I might not like Brooks Brothers shirts or whatever, right? So you can certainly say from my perspective, I like this, but it's really subjective. You have to decide what you like about a town.
Mhm.
Okay. My job isn't to tell you where to live. My job is to help you find a place to live in the places you want to be.
Mhm.
Big difference, right?
I understand.
Then I'll often talk, once I've talked about town, then we'll kind of talk about price range, what price range you're in. And if I haven't already figured out or established whether they're pre-approved or not, that's when I make sure that I absolutely do it. And if they say I'm pre-approved, great. Who are you pre-approved by? Do you have a copy of the pre-approval? Can you share that with me? So on and so forth. Because if it's my Uncle Billy Bob from, you know, the Joe's Garage Mortgage down the street that I've never heard of, I might recommend that they also talk to Shant or Guaranteed Rate or somebody that we've done a lot of business with. Or if it's a relative of theirs, you know, or there's some personal connection to the mortgage company that's a company you're not familiar with, ask if it's okay once they've hired you, if you can have a conversation with that lender. Because you're gonna need lots of information from any lender. When you go to write that offer and you start setting up dates, if you write really tight timeframes, you better make sure the mortgage company can meet their timeframes. And I can tell you right now, July was the busiest lending month ever, followed by August, which was even busier than that. And I'm told that September is in the top 3. So we're seeing loans that we used to be able to get commitments and close in 21 to 28 days. Now we're from the same places, we're not getting commitments for 30 days. Why? Because the refinancing is just insane. So we talk a little bit about price there, right? Then we get into, you know, tell me about the house. And here's what I want to do. And I literally take a piece of paper and I draw a line down the middle of the paper and I write must-haves and nice-to-haves. What are your must-haves and nice-to-haves? A must-have is defined as if the house does not have that attribute, I will not buy it. A nice-to-have is, hey, if the house has that, great. But if it doesn't have it, I'm still okay with that. It's a nice-to-have. Must-haves I generally focus on are the minimum number of bedrooms, minimum number of baths and types of baths. And I usually distinguish only between a full and a half. Remember that there's a 3/4 bath. In my mind, that's a full, even though it's technically a 3/4.
Wait, what would a 3/4 be? Like a shower down?
Correct.
You'll see it everywhere as a full though, for the most part.
Okay.
Like, they call it a full.
Yeah, you have to be careful with it, right? You can distinguish it in some of the search parameters, certainly in MLS and some of the other online real estate venues. You can't discern between a half bath and a full bath. But, you know, baths are usually one of them. Sometimes I'll ask about square footage. Sometimes I'll ask about location. Sometimes I'll, you know, I try to drill down on it. Because if the buyer says, listen, I'm in the $400,000 range in Andover, I will only live on a cul-de-sac, I need to have 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, blah, 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 then it's time to have that come to Jesus meeting with them then. Awesome. You do realize that I'm going to have to make the contract last for 3 or 4 years in order for you to find something. If we can even do it in that time frame, in that price range. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I go through this dialogue with them about these must-haves, nice-to-haves, so that I'm painting this picture for them. Because remember, in my mind, 2 things are important. You're going to provide much better customer service if you offer a question-based needs assessment. What is it that you want? The system that I'm going to talk to you about how we're going to go about this, is designed to make you, the buyer, more efficient, and selfishly designed to make me more efficient as your agent. Jessica, wouldn't you agree that if you don't like split houses, splits, that I probably shouldn't take you on showings to splits.
How'd you know?
Yeah,
How did I know?
no. You're right, I wouldn't wanna waste my time. You know,
Okay.
That would be,
Let me ask you a question, Mariah. If I take you out to show you properties in the $400,000 range and I don't know that you're pre-approved, isn't that a potential waste of my time?
Yes.
Okay. Sure is. Okay, so the way that I like to do this is in this buyer consultation, go through the agency discussion, go through the contract discussion, go into this needs assessment. I call it a needs assessment, you call it whatever you want, but this question-based format that says, what do you want? And so that I'm kind of qualifying it, right?
Mhm.
That's not to say that when I put them on an email drip that I'm gonna put all these parameters in. I might put one or two of them in because I wanna, what happens if you find a house that's within their budget that only has one full bathroom, but has the potential to do a half bath, and they're okay with doing some renovations? You're gonna get those. Okay?
So.
Yeah.
What if their wants or needs, they absolutely need it, list is, I'm sure you get, it's all the time, like 10 pages long and unrealistic, then do you like kind of have that conversation with them, or do you?
I have that conversation with them up front,
Correct.
right? And it's not clubbing them over the head and say, what the hell's wrong with you?
Or like, hey, let's narrow this down a little bit.
Yeah, my expectation would be, wow, that's quite the list. Did you realize that that's kind of like, I don't know, a unicorn?
Reasonable care.
Okay.
you know where you can learn from the show Love It or List It, when
Yeah.
one guy's a realtor and the other is the designer, and
Yeah.
he's like, well, what are your must-haves if I were to get you to move?
Yeah, he stole our idea. We've been doing this for years.
Yeah, and what are your must-haves if you wanna stay, and they renovate, and they see who wins at the end of the show.
That's not Cooper Club.
This may be possible, but
That's
Love it,
lovely.
love it.
That's not realistic.
Yeah.
Oh, I
You
know
said
Cooper Club.
But
That's
that's,
another.
you hear
that's
these
amazing.
people with those lists though, for the real estate agent, and he's like, okay, when you only wanna spend 500,000, like,
Right, but that's the quintessential version of
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
exactly.
And that's exactly what you need to do.
Yeah.
So then here's the other part of the process, and here's how I explain it. So let me tell you a little bit about how we're gonna accomplish this to make more efficient use of time. First of all, I'm gonna put you on a drip from my MLS account. So you're welcome to go use Zillow, you like Redfin, you like Holloway, I don't care what websites you use, please continue to use them. What I'm telling you is I'm gonna set you up on a drip so that at 4 or 5 in the morning, you're getting an email from me that's gonna show you all of the new to market properties that happened within the last 24 hours that meet your price and town criteria. And if there are certain things like, I don't wanna see split houses, I'll pull the splits out. My preference is to keep it as broad as possible because unfortunately, in certain price ranges, splits are all you're gonna get.
You're gonna keep it and do that, right?
It's pretty easy. So you're gonna get this email from me every day. Here's what I'm gonna ask that you do. You're gonna open up that email at a time of your convenience, and you're gonna go through each listing. And the listings that are of interest to you, you're gonna sit there and go through them in detail. And once you've gone through them in detail and you still think you like it, then I want you to go out to Google Maps or pick a mapping software program and go look at the property from as many different angles as you can, from as many different views as you can. Particularly the satellite view, looking down to make sure that it's not next to the local dump. And that would be a place that you didn't want to be. Once you've done all that online due diligence, I want you to rate the property on the following scale, from 1 to 10. 10 is the best house, best location, I can't live without it. 1 is the worst house, worst location. If you bring it to me, I'm just gonna run away from it. Okay. Once you've been through everything online and you've rated it, and they've rated 8, 9, or 10, your homework is to go drive by it.
Our homework or their?
Yours is the buyer, you're the buyer.
Oh,
Your
I'm
homework
sorry.
as the buyer is to go drive by those things you've rated 8, 9, or 10.
You ever get people who are like, I don't wanna get all those emails, you know what I mean, or,
I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
let me just finish, hold that
Yeah.
thought. The answer is no,
Okay.
because I'm describing the process and how we work, right?
Very
So,
narrow it down.
and how we narrow it down and how we save them time by following a system versus just doing it randomly.
My friend said that to me recently, that's why.
once you drive by, guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna rate it from 1 to 10. Anything that you rate 8 or higher, you're gonna message me and we're gonna schedule an appointment to go see. Does that make sense? Now, what I'm finding in today's market, it's possible that the listing comes out on Thursday morning. They look at it at Thursday night. They let you know by Friday morning that they want to, you know, that they're going to go drive by it. By the time they drive by it on Friday night, it's already gone. So what I say to them is, listen, and this is a judgment call. I don't say it to everybody, but I have buyers in Andover right now in the $700,000 to $900,000 price range, which is about as hot as you can get. Pete Carmel went under 17 offers. So the discussion I had with them is, if you see it online and it's from 8 to 10, call me. We're just going to schedule to go in. If you can't make it, I will go in and I'll FaceTime you from wherever you are, just to save that time, to make us more efficient. But remember, I'm now going to ask you 2 questions once we go through a property. And the first property we go into, I say, okay, I just want to make sure. Have you all seen HGTV? That's not how I show properties. I'm not going to come in and show you that fabulous mantle and the wonderful staircase, new post. We're going to go through and I'm going to ask you questions. And I'm going to ask you a question based on your comments. I'm going to ask you a question based on what you're talking about. Okay. But at the end of the showing, I'm going to ask you the same question I keep asking you, which is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you rate it? And why do we keep asking them or you get them to use that system? We're trying to develop a consistency, right? And it's going to help give them a benchmark to start evaluating property on a consistent basis. And if you're looking, trust me, if you're looking at properties, lots of properties with buyers over the course of days or months or whatever, having that system is going to help you narrow this down, okay? And when they say it's a 5 or they say it's a 9 or whatever it is, why isn't it a 10? So that you understand and you listen to it, because what's that going to do? It's giving you market intelligence about their decision-making process and what they're looking for and what's important to them. And sometimes you'll hear that even though you have the husband and wife in the same room, and they both agreed that the open concept kitchen is important to them, they might have a different understanding of what open concept kitchen is from each other. So you have to use that to better understand where you're at. The first time that you go see more than one property, so if you're seeing back-to-back properties, at the second property, the additional question you're going to ask is, okay, if these 2 properties were on the market and you had to buy one today, which one would it be and why? I don't care if they rated both 2. Why am I doing that?
It's going to question themselves and to actually think about it.
Right. So I'm getting them to try to rule things in and out. If you're going to be seeing multiple properties over a day, over a course of hours or a day, or even over the course of time, by getting them to rule out properties, it's clearing their head. What's going to happen is if you don't start doing them and help them to make those types of decisions, because that is your job, is to help them make a decision, not make it for them, this is all going to get cluttered in their minds very quickly. And in many people's cases, especially first-time home buyers, it can be a very overwhelming process. There's a lot to try to take in. So you have that responsibility to do that. You're going to learn a few things along the way, because at some point you might find out that, you know what, where they had to have 4 bedrooms, maybe they'll work with 3, because based on what's going on in the marketplace.
So even if they hate both properties, how come you ask them which one of these would you buy?
Because I'm trying to get them to rule properties out and get it out of their head, if you will, and narrow it down.
Okay.
Okay?
So what if, well, both of them are out of my head and I don't
Then fine.
like them.
Then you're not going to choose one, and you're not going to. I'm just trying to help you get into the habit of making decisions.
Okay.
Right? Because we're going to get to a situation where you're thinking about making an offer, but if we don't act quickly, you might just lose it. So my job is to help you get the information you want to make a decision. My job isn't to make the decision for you. The job, just like when they say, well, what should I offer? It's not my money, it's your money. What do you want to offer? I can give you strategies. I can offer some thoughts on strategically what will happen, but how bad do you want the house?
almost like being a therapist.
I was like,
It is being
I
a
don't know,
It's
I
just
can
like you
just
keep
imagine
asking
some
questions to make
snobby
them
woman being
figure
like,
things out themselves.
why? I don't like either of them.
Okay.
Well,
But
and
then-
go
then-
back.
But then I'm gonna turn it around. Remember, if you're question-based in your process, the question is, okay, which one would you rule in or out? Go ahead, give me the answer.
Why? I don't like either of them.
Okay, so tell me why you don't like either of them.
I think he brought me to property that I just don't like. I don't
Okay,
like it.
So here's my question to you. I brought you to properties you didn't like, but these were the properties you rated 8 or higher based on your
Oh,
evaluation, remember?
Okay. I thought you said even if there are 2, which one?
Well, they might get into the property and it might be a flipping disaster and they might go like that. But that's why I want to understand, why is it 2? Why is it not a 10 and why is it a 2? Because if I did my job, even if you didn't, they had them drive by, they saw it online and they rated it an 8 or higher.
Okay.
So that's the other benefit of doing this process. It's never you shoving a property down their throat. It's a property they've identified and they've qualified on their own. Let me assure you, you go to a couple of 2s, their criteria in their head is going to change and you won't be going to too many 2s after that.
Yeah.
Because of one of 2 things. They're either going to realize it or they're going to say, hey, I want to go see this one. And you can be like, remember that first property you saw? This is worse than that. Why do you want to go see it? You rated that one a 2.
So Eric, what would you suggest? So if someone, say they go through this process, right, or in this market and they just look at it and they say, this is a 10, Eric, like I need to see this house, because I went through it a couple of years ago and I was like, I have to see this, I want to see it tomorrow. If there's an open house, do you try to get them in before the open house happens? Like how does that, I think I'm just kind of confused on like, do you try or do you wait for the open house? Because sometimes they don't let you in before the open house. I don't know.
Well, that's just it. You got to know what's going on, right? There are a lot of these, one of the strategies I employ when I list properties in a market like this is I don't allow anybody until the open house, because I'm trying to funnel as many people into the property in a short period of time, which does what? It creates kind of an auction atmosphere. I'm trying to get
Highest and best.
I'm trying to get the 6 of you to look at this one property all at the same time so that you see that there are 5 other people that are looking at the property at the same time. It's not quite the same as going there during a private showing when it is when you show up and there's a party before you and there's a party waiting to go after. It's kind of the same thing, but there's nothing better as a list agent to just, you pull up to your open house and there's 15 cars waiting to get in. You know you're a busy open house and you know you're gonna have multiple offers, right? So does that answer your question?
Yes, I think it was just more on the buyer side, like what you would suggest. Like, would you suggest for them to wait, or if they did offer you to go before open house, would you just try to get them in there as fast as possible?
Again, it's situational, meaning
Okay.
what are the showing instructions, right? Versus what kind of market are you in? I had one call me the other day. The property came on in the market. It came across must have got listed late at night. Came up in the email in the morning. They called me by 9 a.m. They're like, we want to get in today. Okay, no problem. I get on there. There are no showings for 2 days because they were all booked, even though the showings were open, because that's how busy the place is going to be. So you've got to develop that level of, I would say in these markets, you've got to act urgently. And you've got to do your best to get in there as soon as possible, because there are a number of savvy owners and savvy list agents that will say, okay, we're calling for offers for Tuesday at 12 noon, but the seller reserves the right to accept an offer prior. Okay? There are some agents that will say, nope, the offer deadline's the offer deadline. We're not looking at offers beforehand. So that's the other call that I make in today's environment. It's not just, hey, can I get in there? But it's, what if it doesn't say in MLS, that the sellers will or won't consider offers before an offer deadline that's identified? I ask that question because it's going to make a difference for me. Am I showing the property at 7 o'clock on a Friday night, and then they're only going to look at offers at Tuesday? Then I'm not going to blow out my Friday night just to write an offer that's going to sit there for 3 days.
Right.
But if it says the seller's considering offers beforehand, then I have a conversation with my buyer. Do you want to write an offer? And if you're trying to get them to accept the offer, you better blow their socks off with the offer. Okay. There's a lot of psychology in this job. whether you like it or not. And part of what we want to teach you in all of this is both in terms of the processes that we try to teach you and the strategies that we try to teach you. It's try to embrace that psychology. Think about what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks when it comes to the agency disclosure and the exclusive right to buy agreement. We're not just passing information, we're giving you techniques to deal with the objections that are going to be coming with it. Okay? You don't need me to sit you down and explain what this piece of paper is. You guys are very intelligent people and you can read this and you could probably do a very good job of explaining without me involved, but I'm trying to feather in, you know, hey, you're going to have objections. The payment paragraph 6, you're going to have objections. It's either going to be because you triggered it because you're not comfortable with it, or because you've got an obstinate individual that just wants to fight you. But you got to know how to deal with it. Some of it, most of it we can teach you. Some of it, you got to go experience it and just get through and kind of knuckle through it. Make sense? Okay. So this buyer consultation, right? It's agency. It's, let me tell you how I work, and then let me tell you about the process we're going to follow. And we do this process to make it easier for you and easier for me to manage this process for you. Okay? But by asking questions versus going into the property and saying, look at all the beautiful artwork and all of this, by asking questions, especially when when there's more than one decision maker, you're going to find that the 2 decision makers oftentimes are not on the same page. And you got to figure out which one's willing to give on which issues and vice versa. But don't ask a question and neglect the answer. Ask the question, get the answer, and then use that to improve the process going along. And what do I mean by that? If they don't want to, you walk them through a ranch and then they decide they don't like ranches anymore, don't show them any more ranches. Because that will be thrown back in your face faster than you can possibly imagine. Okay, and when they say, hey, I want to go see that property, you do realize that's a ranch, right? You told me you didn't ever want to step foot in another ranch. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything about the kind of qualifying of the buyer's needs? Okay, so a buyer presentation, a buyer consultation is really just that. It's, hey, come on in. I want to have this conversation with you about buying. I want to achieve 3 things. I need to go through this state requirement and talk to you about agency and what it is and how you can work, what the different ways you can work with a real estate agent are. Then I want to talk to you about how I work, and the way that I work is somebody hires me to be their buyer's agent. So there's some documentation I need to go through on that. And then I really want to understand what your needs are, what your must-haves and what your nice-to-haves are, so that I can go do a good job. Sometimes you'll make the business decision to schedule showings that are immediately after or within close proximity of that buyer consultation. And you may have gotten through that consultation and they haven't hired you yet. You have to make a business decision. Do I still go show them the property? And if I do, then I'm a facilitator. Unless it's what? One of our own listings, then you're what? The seller agent. So do you understand why you've got to have these conversations up front?
You're saying you don't have this sign and you go see a property, you'd be a facilitator.
You'd have to be, right?
Until you get signed.
Until you get a time. Because what happens if they sign the state agency disclosure and check buyer's agent? Is that a contract?
Implied,
No.
could be implied.
It could be implied, even though it's a disclosure.
Interesting. I was going to ask a question about
Go ahead.
something very similar to that. Say in any situation, but for example, you go to meet a Zillow person that you just got a phone call from, you walk through the property and in your mind you're thinking, well, they'll like probably hopefully get this sign and become the buyer's agent. But you walk out the door, they say, I actually want to put an offer on right now. I'm not working with anyone. I want to put it through you.
Mhm.
Do you have to get this signed before you submit the offer?
I sure would.
Because
Because 2 things are gonna happen. How do you know the offer's gonna get accepted? If it doesn't, you lost your opportunity to get them signed up, right? I'm not saying you force them into it, but you certainly should have that discussion and have them sign you.
if you didn't have them sign you,
Sign you up, yeah.
that if they didn't do that,
Yeah.
what binds them to the 3%?
And when you submit the offer, you have to tell the seller's agent what your role in it is. And you can't say that you're the buyer's agent if you're not.
You need to facilitate it.
Yeah.
I was playing with MLS, I just got it today, and the first time using it, and under one of the listings or the house I was looking at, it said facilitator / exclusive, and I didn't know. It sounds like it's two contradictory things.
Well, it's not, because with there are the different elements of a contract. You can enter into a contract, exclusive or otherwise, right? So the type of contract, the exclusivity is just, you're working with me, you agree not to work with somebody else. That's what makes it exclusive. The type of agency is going to be defined in the contract. And whether there's a fiduciary or not can be, we're saying in this contract there's a fiduciary, right?
Yeah.
So facilitator exclusive is gonna say, you're exclusively working with me, but I'm not representing you and there is no fiduciary.
Okay.
Somebody wants to sign that.
Someone did, I don't know where it was, but it's okay. Everything was, I was reading, just like learning what the lingo, and one of them said that, so I was just like, okay, I haven't seen that before. Curious.
Can you explain more about that email drip that?
Yep, so you will have through your MLS account, the ability to put my contact, if I'm your buyer, my contact information, my name, my phone number, my email, and then I can attach a predetermined search to that, right? So you know that I'm looking in Andover, North Andover, in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. I want at least a 3-bedroom property. You could set up that search in the system and save it, attach it to my name, and the system's gonna be smart enough that when you do that, that every night at 3 a.m, it's gonna go out to MLS and see if there's anything new that listed in Andover, North Andover, in that price range. And if it does, it's gonna, the system's smart enough to send me an email saying, hey, look what happened. There's a new one there. Okay, when we get the new CRM up and running by November 1, we'll actually be doing that through the CRM, which ties back to MLS, but the CRM is gonna be smart enough because it's gonna be tied to our website that it will actually be tracking when they go back to the website, and you'll be able to see what they looked at, and the system's got artificial intelligence, and it's gonna start dynamically scoring the activity of your buyer, and the system's gonna say to you, hey, Madison, you haven't spoken to Eric in over a week, and their score is 90. You better pick up the phone and call them.
Awesome. It's like Google, like when you're
Oh,
searching
yeah.
for something and then all of a sudden you see it on Facebook or
Yep.
Instagram.
And you'll know how many times they looked at a property too?
Sure.
On the same
How many times they'll know exactly where on the page they click, what links they click, just like all that stuff.
Does that help with,
Shows how motivated.
does that show their activity on third-party websites as well, like Zillow? And
So
was
what
that
we're gonna
included in
end
the
up
new thing that you're getting, or that we're getting?
is what we bring now. Now, it's been out there for a while, but I wouldn't say that it's widely adopted by the realtor community in general. Because remember, unless you're in you're in one of the major national companies. So you can be in Coldwell Banker, you can be in Keller Williams, you can be in Remax, and you can have some of that stuff, or you can choose not to use it, right? Because you all are what? Independent contractors, right? We're saying to you, we're gonna provide it, and you're gonna use it. And guess what? If you don't, then you're gonna pay for it. Because we want it available, but because from a management tool, I get to see Lillian and Bob and I will be able to see everything, and we'll be able to see where you're at. The top prospect, we'll be able to generate your top prospect list out of that system by pressing a button. We'll be able to see going on, you'll be able to do text messaging, eventually text messaging and email messages. Somebody signs into put somebody in the system, it will automatically, you'll tell it which email campaign or text campaign or combination campaign to use, and then what's gonna happen is the system's gonna send out an email as if it's from you 3 days from now, just saying, hey, we spoke a couple days ago, I just wanna make sure you didn't have any other questions. But you don't have to worry about it, it's just automatically gonna happen. And then they'll be on this communication campaign in addition to the getting emails about the properties that are out there. And then some of the AI stuff will actually be smart enough to say, okay, I'm seeing this activity, I'm just gonna send them an email on your behalf without you even knowing it. And if they respond to it, the system's gonna go, hey, I sent them an email. They responded, you better pick up a phone and call. Yeah, it's wild stuff.
That'd be great.
It's just wild stuff. Okay, so who wants to do a buyer, who wants to be next to go through this with us? You're all gonna do it, whether it's today or Friday. I'm just trying to make sure we're not doing 6 of them in a row or 7 of them in a row. I'm just trying to break it up a little bit. I get to pick somebody. Nobody wants to volunteer. Who's cringing the most, Madison?
I don't think I was cringing. I think Jessica was.
Guess you won't have a problem doing it then.
There you go. You ready to go? I'll give you what? You want to take a 2 or 5 minute break, everybody?
Sure.
All right, let's do that, and then we'll come back, and Madison will woo us with her presentation of the
Yes, she
exclusive right to
will.
buy agreement. Yeah, go get your woo on.
Oh, goodness.
Anyone else want water?
Okay, thank you so
All
much.
set, thank you.
Julie?
Sure.
Hey, Julie, you did a really nice job. I'm gonna definitely be calling you to practice that.
Oh, anytime. You can practice and then I will ask you questions for the test.
Yeah, we're gonna swap.
Yes.
Okay, I have my exam study notes. You can't see on the camera. Am I distracting anyone if I talk to Julie?
Yeah, please stop.
All right. What's the word? Wait. How would you describe value? And wait, what's the word like to help you remember something?
Oh, an acronym?
Thank you. What's the acronym for value?
I didn't get there yet, so I
Okay.
don't remember.
I'll teach you something.
What was the question?
It's either dust or stud, but stud
Stud. Oh,
has
yes.
value and dust doesn't. But it's scarcity, transferability, utility, and disposition.
Mhm.
And you're gonna remember that.
I am going to remember that
You're
now.
never gonna forget it because studs have value.
Yes, studs have value. I remember Joe, prep agent, saying that.
Yeah. How do you know if something's a fixture?
It's attached. It's not
Method of
movable.
This is Maria.
So almost all the time, would you say, or? just
Oh,
some-
fixture does Maria?
Method of
Do-
attachment,
Do people
adaptability,
ask you to go
relationship,
over the
intention,
old
and
cards
agreement.
When you get to this, not really.
Do you know what the government powers are?
Yes, police power,
You're reading this, Laura?
eminent
Oh,
domain.
or the fate.
Eminent domain,
I mean-
it's deep.
Spells Pete.
Obviously, what Sue said, but
Pete, yes. Police power, eminent domain, taxation, and then enjoyment.
SG.
No, that's escheat, yes.
So what is SG?
That's when someone dies without a will.
Yeah, there you go. And do you know what the opposite is?
The opposite of escheat.
Yeah. When you die.
And you have a will, and then you have to, it would be,
Isn't it is it intestate? I think it's like in.
that I don't remember.
I think it means you die with one. That you'll need to know. I think.
Okay, I have to go over this in my head.
Sorry, am I annoying you?
sure, so-
I just need to go over it.
Hold on. Well, you need to know what testate means. One's dying with a will, one's dying without a will.
Escheat is dying without a will.
Without that I know, but then there's like testate or
Just in the middle.
what? Oh, you want me to-
You're trying to read this.
Oh, okay. I asked if you guys mind if I talk.
I
Sorry.
know, but not.
I told you not to. No, I'll get-
I can hear you. What is And we just got an email from Wayne.
Wait,
Wayne about the malls.
I'll just wait it. Stutter again.
Malls are gonna keep stores closed on Thanksgiving. He sent a letter.
I'm really enjoying Selling Sunset.
Isn't it so good? I binged it in like 2 days.
I'm on season 2.
Oh, good. They're calling me to let me know I don't have COVID. Good thing I called them at 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. until I heard from them. They told me earlier today when I could call them though. They were just gonna like take their time and call me at 3:30 when they had the results this morning. It's so annoying.
I think it'll be easier to present this if it's not in front of Eric.
We just got an email from Eric, you guys. Offer to purchase real estate in Madison. Oh.
And I'm really
Mark wants to buy my house?
Are you selling your house?
Mom's dying, she wants
No.
Wait, so tell me about the plane ride. Luch was in a plane ride today, like a little plane.
I thought you were just kidding in the meeting that this was like not really happening. This was like a joke.
Really legit pulled me out of the meeting, or she whispered in my ear during the meeting, and then she pulled me out into the hallway. She goes, "You're gonna be on a plane today."
I would be like,
Yeah.
I don't think I'm
Because
not.
this property, it's like a 1.5 million or something property, and it's on a lake near the airport. So when we tried doing the drone there, we couldn't like launch it because it was too close to the airport.
Oh, that's right.
And so the
Why
only
do you
other option,
have to do it though? Are you the photographer? Why
I
do
do
you
like
have-
all that stuff.
Oh, I
all the
didn't know
marketing.
that.
Wait, where
I'm like
So
transitioning
you
on that
took the
stuff.
pictures of it.
Yeah, so
is it a nice
so
property?
it has a lot of potential. It was built in like I think 1968 or 1986 or something, and like legit hasn't been changed since. Like this
Well,
place
no, I
is
did. I
like
put ice in there. I was talking about
the most outdated house I've ever seen.
It's the biggest house you've ever seen? That's
What's
so
the difference?
cool.
It's like it's in there.
Did
Trust
you
me,
get,
I'd give you a harder time than you would.
you're gonna do great.
We'll see.
And then well, both of you, I'm sure your photos.
Wait, so were you, Luch, were you not like
Oh,
one
yeah.
of those little small planes that you jump out of?
Yeah, it was so tiny. It was like
I couldn't do it.
literally a 2-seater, and the whole thing was bouncing so much. It was so windy today.
Were you scared? I would be scared. I would need like a.
Not really. I don't know.
I don't like flying.
It's only scary if you think about it going down. If you think about the fact that your house is being in the air. And like,
Was it like bumpy? Were you like taking
oh,
pictures like?
it was like legit. Like I was like mounting my arms so like things so that they wouldn't shake as much.
You're so brave. I'm so proud. I'm so impressed.
No, I mean,
That's crazy. I mean, I jumped out of a plane before. I did skydiving, so I'm just picturing like one of those little, because it was like a putt-putt plane,
Yeah.
and like,
it was smaller than that though. This was like literally a 2-person plane. Like I was next to the guy. I had like the steering wheel thing, and I had the headset on. And
You should have had me take a picture of you like pretending to fly.
everything. I told him I was like, dude, if you fall asleep or anything, I'm landing this thing.
I'd be like, wait, people in here somehow. Or the plane probably couldn't hold more than like 2 people.
Yeah, there wasn't even that.
Which contact?
Did the window open? So you could put the camera out, or was it tough to take pictures?
No, so he said that I could open the window, but I would have to hold it open with one hand so it didn't flap up in the wind, and then take the picture in the other hand.
Mm.
And so I took a test picture through the window, and it looked totally fine. So I didn't even bother opening it.
You're going 100 miles an hour, right?
Yeah, I mean the thing would have been flapping. So
I'm so impressed.
So they said what state?
So, does that cost a lot? Was it
I
fully
thought it was
by
gonna
the
be a ton.
company?
It was less than $200.
I feel like you're gonna just do it for fun.
So there's like part of the services. There's like.
They never tell anybody that we're gonna take a picture of us on the plane.
Right. Right. So there are things, so, unlike most companies, when you list a property, the cost of listing the property is for the most part, it's on us. We'll get into it, but, you could even go out and say, I'll have a stager come through at no cost and we'll pay for that. If we opt to do floor plans or drone work, or most of the stuff we do in-house anyway, but we'll pay for that. If we get into some significantly extravagant, unique situation, then we'll have it come conversation, depending on what it is.
I didn't know that it was staging. I thought that was always the cost of the seller.
Generally, that's how it is, but I've got access to a couple stagers and they'll bill us $150, but you know, when you're on a listing appointment, you go out and say, hey, you know what, I'll have my stager come in, no cost to you, to give you a consultation. If you decide to hire the stager, then that's on you.
The house I was at was staged, a running property. Are you guys gonna take a look? I think on the meeting I heard that
That's what-
Lillian said,
Yep, we're gonna try and get in there.
yeah.
So let's not delay any further. Madison,
Okay.
let's do it.
So this next form is the exclusive right to buy agreement. So starting off here, it's just gonna be your name, and then we're gonna put the approximate price range that you were looking for. And then we're also gonna put your preferred location. So if you have more than one, we're just gonna list all of them.
So California and New Mexico, and is that what we're talking about? Or?
No, then we're gonna have to get a referral if you wanna go there, but no,
Good
I
answer,
mean
by the
like
way.
towns, so
Good answer.
any
Yep.
sort of town or county or anything like
Okay.
that.
Great.
And then general description for 3 bathrooms, the 3 bedrooms or anything like that.
Okay.
Large yard, any sort of general description we'll put here. And then this first paragraph here just says that we're an agency that is licensed in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So if you end up looking at anything in New Hampshire, we can also handle that for you as well.
Are you licensed in New Hampshire?
I'm not licensed, but when we get into, well, we did go over this disclosure form and we talked about how we're a non-designated agency.
Mhm.
So do you remember what that is?
I think so. Isn't it like we all work, you all work together? or
Yeah,
something like that?
exactly. So if you hire me, you get all of us. So if you sign on with me, my agency, since it's hired, since it's licensed in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, then we would be able to cover you. So I would direct you to another agent within my agency.
Okay.
Okay.
And does this cover me in New Hampshire?
This is just a disclosure form, so this isn't a contract.
Right, but does that cover me in New Hampshire?
We would have to give
Because I'm
you,
thinking about New Hampshire.
so if we do, so that wouldn't be me. So if you, correct me if I'm wrong because.
It was a trick
I-
question, that's fine.
Okay. But they would be presented a new disclosure form at the time that they view the New Hampshire property with a different agent.
Correct, but why? It's not so much that it's a different agent, it's because it's a different
State.
state, right?
Okay.
Yep, good.
Okay, so then this first paragraph here is about services, and we did go over that in the disclosure form, the really long one, the Massachusetts
yeah.
mandatory, yeah.
So, but I'm sorry, I have one more question about New Hampshire, because you brought it up and now you got me thinking.
Okay.
If I sign this exclusive, does that cover me in New Hampshire?
Yes, it does.
But this one doesn't.
Yeah, so this is a disclosure form, so this is gonna be, you're gonna have a new one that you'll have to sign, since it says Commonwealth of Massachusetts on it, so you're gonna have a new one to sign for New Hampshire, and it's gonna be the same thing.
This is a state law, and New Hampshire has a similar state law that requires us as licensees to review the types of relationships that we can have with agents. So yes, there'd be a separate one, but this contract covers both. And you know how you know that?
Because it's.
Says it right in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
Good.
Cool.
Just trying to trip you up. You're doing fine.
So, where were we? Services.
You already did services, you can jump on to the next one.
Okay, so then the second part here is the duration of agency. So when you hire me, it's gonna take us 6 months. It's a competitive market right now, so it's probably gonna take us about 6 months. I'm gonna.
6 months, I was hoping to be in my house in 6 months.
I think I could probably do my magic to get you in there sooner, but I just want you to be aware that this contract is for 6 months.
So the
and it
duration of the contract is for 6 months. The way that you presented it, we said that it's gonna take us 6 months,
Oh, okay.
right? So the duration of the contract is 6 months, and why is that? Because in the kind of market that we're in right now, it could take us that long, right? I don't wanna set, it's a nuance with a difference. I just don't want you to set an expectation that somebody thinks that it's gonna take 6 months to get a house. Because they'll probably go, maybe I don't wanna buy right now.
Okay, so the
Okay.
duration of the contract is.
Duration of the contract, right?
Okay, so then this next, do you have any questions so
Nope.
far? Okay, so then this next paragraph here is buyer's obligations, so that's actually your obligations. Do you have any idea of what obligations you might have?
I didn't realize I was gonna have obligations. Are these like legal obligations or what are they?
Yeah, just, I mean, not very many obligations, but just a due diligence to yourself. So if you have any sort of, standards or if you're concerned about anything and it's important to you, just make sure that you research it yourself, whether it's, you know,
I thought that's why I was hiring you.
you are hiring me to do a whole lot of stuff with broker's authority and responsibility. Well, that's my responsibility, but just know that you have also an obligation, and you also have an obligation to, oh no, I don't remember.
So I'll ask you a question.
Okay.
What should I be concerned about?
I think if I were to buy a house, I would be concerned about the sex offenders. And I would definitely research that.
Okay, you just gave yourself more work.
I did.
Yeah, I would never answer the question.
Oh, I thought you had asked me like,
I did, as the buyer.
oh,
As the buyer, I'm saying to you, okay, well, what should I be concerned about? So your response shouldn't be, I'm just saying, generally saying, and I'm purposely trying to trip you up, so don't feel bad. I'm doing this on purpose to try and use it as a learning lesson for you and for everybody else. But somebody said, well, what should I be concerned about? Well, it's not so much that you ought to be concerned about something, it's that you have this responsibility to yourself to know what you're buying, right? And for some people, that means it's important for them to know what's going on around the property, outside the bounds of the property, in terms of where they're gonna live and what's next to them and so on and so forth. Are there any planned projects or whatnot? Projects meaning, you know, highways or apartment buildings or commercial or others. You know, for other people, it's making sure, you know, for most buyers, I find that they have a responsibility to go do a home inspection. Now, you may opt to waive your home inspection, but that doesn't mean you can't do one, right? And we can talk about that later, Ms. Buyer, but for me, it's about making sure that when you buy a house, and you told me this, you're a first-time home buyer, that you've done the work to know what you are buying.
okay.
Right, and that because the last thing we want you to do is go spend $500,000 on a house and go in and go, oh, I didn't know that, and I didn't know that, and if I'd known that, I wouldn't have bought it, right? It's my job to guide you through this process, but you have this awesome responsibility to yourself to know what you're buying. And if you're not sure because you're a first-time home buyer, every now and again, I'll ask you a question that hopefully just make you think.
Okay.
Okay, how's that? Awesome.
Seems like a good answer.
All right, tell me about buyer's responsibility, broker's responsibility.
Okay. Okay, so we did go over this in the Massachusetts Mandatory Real Estate Licensee Consumer Relationship Disclosure Form. So this is what I will be doing for you. So this is my responsibility was the fiduciary responsibility. Do you remember what that was?
What we just went over in paragraph 1, the service paragraph. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome, good answer.
And do you have any questions on that part?
No, but this paragraph's a little bit different, right?
You're smart.
I read it before I came.
Oh, so it's basically also stating that, not basically, but it does state that under no circumstances are you able to sign anything else with any other agent.
So that's the exclusivity paragraph, paragraph 5, right? The effectiveness, that's okay. So
Okay.
the broker's responsibility, so yes, you have this thing called fiduciary, right? But your real responsibilities are what? I'm here to help you find a house. It doesn't mean that that it's not possible that you might see the house, that you might identify the house. But my job is to walk you through that house and make sure that strategize with you about the offers. We'll talk about value of the property. I'm here to negotiate on your behalf. I'm here to leverage my market knowledge to help you through this process, whether it's answering questions, being the source of the source, whatever the case may be. That's what my responsibility to you is, in addition to my fiduciary, and also as a result of my fiduciary. Right? In my mind, just write this down. When you're working with a buyer and they decide to make an offer, if you do not do a CMA for them and tell them what you believe the fair market value to be, you have broken your fiduciary responsibility to your buyer. okay? There is a difference between fair market value and what they're going to put in for an offer. There's fair market value, there's a buyer's perception of value, there's a seller's perception of value, there's the emotional attachment to the house, right? Do you think the people that paid on Best Way that are paying $65,000 over the asking price, is that the fair market value of that property? Probably not, but they have an emotional attachment to that house because they've lost out on so many other houses, they don't want to lose out on another one. Okay, so the broker's responsibility is more than just my fiduciary, it's the results of my fiduciary, and it's kind of those pragmatic things that I'm gonna do for you. I'm going to be there and show you homes. I'm going to go with you to open houses. I'm going to direct you to open houses. I'm going to make sure you're getting the information from me about the houses that are out there. We're going to go see those houses together. We're going to talk about the houses when we're in there. I'm going to qualify what it is you like and don't like about the houses. I'm going to help you qualify what you need to know or don't want to know about the property. We're going to sit down and talk about this thing called an offer. We're going to talk about the offer strategy. And what should we do, what shouldn't you do in terms of contingencies and not. My job is to help you assess the risk of doing certain things or not. You might choose to waive a home inspection as part of your strategy. There is a risk associated with that because you might have found something in a home inspection if you didn't do it and then you move in and trip across something. That's the risk you take. My job is to tell you what that risk is so that you can make an informed decision. That's my responsibility to you as a result of my fiduciary, which is required for me to provide.
Okay.
Okay, so it's a very important distinction to take that paragraph 4 and talk about it in the pragmatic sense.
So pretty much, as long as you go through this and make little bullet points of all the things that you need to say, it'll just come more natural.
It will, right? Why does it come natural to me? Because I've been doing this for a very, very long time, and I'm the one that gets to talk to you, right? I've practiced this skill literally hundreds of times just with agents, just with people like yourself, training them. You want to get good at, you want to get better at something, go train somebody to do it. You'll figure out what's right and wrong pretty quickly. That's why I like doing the training, is because it keeps my skills sharp and it helps me to make sure, because every now and again you guys ask me a question I have to actually sit and think about and go, holy shit, nobody's ever asked me that before in 20 years. How would I answer that?
One of the things with this paragraph too is that the better that you do on, the better that you do on that and talk about what you're offering, that'll help the payment paragraph go easier because it's the knowledge right before you go into the payment.
Okay.
Jump down to the effective.
Okay, so this next paragraph is effective of the break by agreement. So that just means that when you sign this, we're committed to working together. So like you will have obligations and I will have obligations and we'll be a team. So you won't be able to sign any agency contract with any other agent.
Or you wouldn't want to sign an agent with another. You wouldn't want to sign a similar document with another agent because then it obligates you to pay 2 fees.
I thought that you weren't allowed to.
How are you going to police that?
Oh, maybe I read it wrong.
It's
I thought that
okay.
you
By definition, it's an exclusivity, right? So by definition, I don't think you're wrong in saying that. But a buyer can choose to do it. Anybody can choose what they want to do. The question is, what are the ramifications of those actions? The ramifications of signing another exclusive with another agent is probably going to obligate you to another fee. So now you're potentially on the hook to pay 2 fees.
Okay.
I don't think that's what you're looking for. But this is, one of the ways I describe this is, hey, this makes you exclusive to me and my office exclusive to you.
Is that where you can say you'll use your market knowledge and negotiation skills if you work with me, and you'll miss out if you work with someone else?
You can, that's more of you could use it in both this paragraph or whatnot, but hey, this is where you're gonna commit to me, which means I'm gonna commit to you. What does that mean? We didn't really,
I had it under.
what does that mean? Well, it means remember, I don't get paid until the end of the transaction, so I have to invest a lot of time and effort and even money, right? I got to get my car and I got to pay for my cell phone and I got to pay for everything now, but I have to wait for the money later. By you committing to me, I'm willing to commit to do all of that. If you're unwilling to commit to me, I'm probably not gonna give you much of my time, because the time is the only thing I have that is mine to give. And I need to get compensated for my time because I'm trying to put food on the table. Go ahead, the payment paragraph, my favorite.
So I actually wrote what Julie said down and I forgot to say it. So if you
Okay.
go and work with someone else, you won't get the full advantage of the services that we provide.
Great line, I think I've heard that today.
Okay, so then this next paragraph here is talking about payments. This is basically how I get paid. So the fee that, our standard fee in our agency is 3%.
Okay.
So it's 3% of the purchase price that you buy. So since you're a home buyer, normally the seller pays that fee. It entices people to buy the property. So most of the time it's we'll pay 2.5% of it. So then this is basically acknowledging the fact that you would be liable to pay the 0.5%.
What the contract is saying is that you're obligated to pay 3%. What
Okay.
the contract also says is, and the good news for you, Mr. Buyer, is that if we receive any compensation, if the seller's offering any compensation of any kind, we're gonna take that and use it to offset that 3% obligation that you have.
Okay.
So wouldn't it be wonderful for you to get my full services with only paying a partial fee or no fee at all? But this is a contractual obligation that establishes that if I do my job, you owe me 3%. By the way, if somebody else is willing to put money in, we'll take that money and credit it against what you owe us.
And do you say, like, are you okay to say most of the time you don't pay that fee?
I don't qualify it by, I generally say, I try to keep it more generic and just say, listen, more often than not, right? I don't know what does more often than not mean to you? Is that 51%? Is it 62%? Is it 77%? Is it 80%? I like to keep things generic because regularly I will tell you when I look at and I use Nicole as the example because she's the one that consistently signs at 3% besides, others besides me, is that generally my buyers and Nicole's buyers are paying at least 0.5%. Have there been a couple that don't pay? Sure, yeah. But the vast majority of them are paying something. So I don't want to say that, generally speaking, the sellers are going to pay that fee. What I want to say is, yeah, generally speaking, sellers pay a fee, which will be used to offset whatever you owe. So there's a pretty good chance you're going to owe me something, but it's going to be fractional versus a full payment. And even better, if we can negotiate something else to offset that, right? If I can negotiate a credit for you, think of it this way. Instead of pulling the money out of your pocket to pay for closing costs, I get you a credit to pull so that you don't have to do that. Isn't that offsetting some of the amount of money you're pulling out of your pocket? That's why we do these things, right?
Okay.
Keep going.
All right.
So good.
The next paragraph here is talking about the broker's role. So after you sign this, I and the rest of the Lillian Montalto team will present you. We'll introduce ourselves to you. Wait, what does it say? We'll represent you and we will introduce ourselves as such when reaching out to sellers.
Right.
Is that cool? Okay.
Yep.
And then the next section here is talking about how I'm not a property inspector, I'm not a tax advisor, I'm not a zoning expert. So you'll have to reach out to all of those other professionals and I will give you contacts.
And if you need help finding them, I'll do it. Yep, good.
And then the next paragraph here is talking about agency information. So it's again talks about how we're a non-designated agency, which we went over a few times about how the fact that you'll get the advantage of the entire team when you sign with me. And then this next section here is could be sent to dual agency. So we did talk about that. Are you familiar with the? Do you remember?
I remember something to the effect that it's if I hire you and I want to buy a house that your agency offers, you're representing both parties, if I remember correctly.
Yes, exactly. So when we do go to a property that will become dual agency if you do get involved in the buying process, you'll be notified of that, and there'll be another contract for you to sign,
Another notice.
another notice for you to
Think of
sign.
it like a disclosure, notice is like a disclosure, it's saying, hey, it's happening. It's kind of just this alert that you as the buyer and the seller are gonna sign acknowledging that it's happening.
Okay. So other than notice, that was okay to start it that way?
Yeah, I just wouldn't describe it as a contract, but otherwise I thought it was a decent explanation.
Okay, we can deal with decent. Getting better.
You're doing fine.
And then this
You're
next,
doing better than 95% of the agents out there, because most of them can't or won't explain this.
when I went over this form with my dad, he said that he's never saw it before and he's bought like tons of homes, so that was
Oh.
interesting.
Yeah, so did you say that's unfortunate,
That's
because that
against the
just
law.
tells me it's against the law.
So then this last paragraph here, declaration of agency, that just says that, you have no other contracts with anyone else.
Yep.
Okay, so there's actually 2 sections of 8, so I apologize about that. So this next section 8 is talking about other buyers. So it says, it's basically saying that I and my brokerage have,
They have.
may have to show the property to other
Or
buyers.
maybe working with other buyers like you that have hired us to help them find homes. And they might be in the same price range, they might be in the same town, it's possible.
But it doesn't happen very often. Okay. And then section 9 is just talking about equal opportunity, so this has to deal with any sort of protected class. So when it comes to, they're also listed here, ancestry, sex, age, marital status, handicap, fair housing association. So this just says that I have the obligation and it's part of the law for me to treat everyone fairly.
I have a service dog, is that gonna be a problem?
Oh, you answered so confidently. Yeah.
You did, you were like,
Like, no.
You knew, you knew.
you did it right.
It was a no, though.
Emotional support.
Was it?
animal, then you have to-
I think it was a no, it was a no. So then, equal opportunity, okay, so now we're at section 10.
You're almost done.
So this is an entire agreement and modification thereof. So this is just stating that any sort of changes that we make to the contract, we're gonna both initial them and then we'll sign it at the end.
Okay.
And for this last section assignment, this is just stating that you're not allowed to sell this contract to anyone else.
Okay, does that happen often?
No, I think it's happened once in this whole time that we've been a brokerage.
Hey, how'd you do?
But you did.
I thought you did very good.
You did, very
You got
good.
thrown a lot of curveballs.
So baby steps. It was definitely not as smooth as Julie's. We're gonna get
All right, so in your emails, you will have received a copy of the offer to purchase real estate.
Attached,
I believe it's attached to this now. I've done my job correctly. What I'd like you to do is just to read through it and be familiar with it. So on Friday, what we're gonna do, or the rest of you at some point on Friday are going to do what Julie and Madison have already done and present the exclusive right to buy agreement. The rest of the time are interspersed between presentations. We're gonna go through what the offer is. We're gonna go through each of the paragraphs and what each paragraph or each contingency means. And then I'm gonna actually hand out to you how to write an offer. And so when you write dates in an offer, what are those timeframes that you should use? We're gonna have those discussions. Again, there is an awful lot of discretion put into how offers are written. So I'm trying to give you basic guidelines as to how to, or give you a framework to write that and be able to leverage discretion where needed based on the circumstance, but also in the same thought process, know that there are certain things that, you're not gonna, in Massachusetts anyway, you're not gonna have somebody sign a purchase and sale before they finish a home inspection. Things like that. So just, and all I ask you is at least give it a read, You don't have to study it. I'm not gonna be quizzing you on it. We're gonna go through it in detail, but I will ask you to just read it and be familiar with it. Okay, was this helpful today?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
Any questions that I can answer for anybody? Julie, anything we can answer for you?
No, not right now. Thank you.
Okay. Jessica?
I think I'm okay for now.
Jonathan?
I actually have a few things.
Okay, go for it.
For next week, when we talked a couple weeks ago, you said classes for the week 21st through 25th wasn't guaranteed yet. I do have a doctor's appointment at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, but I also know there's a Zillow, what I think is required webinar, and we all attend.
Yeah, well, that's the 23rd. We will all be on that, so there won't be a class on Wednesday.
Okay, and that gets done at 3:30 anyway, so that's fine for my appointment. So perfect. My other two questions are a little bit off topic. One very off topic. The New England Association of Realtors.
Northeast Association of Realtors.
Sorry, Northeast Association of Realtors.
Yeah.
Mariah got an email saying that she needed to complete ethics training within 30 days.
Mhm.
I don't remember receiving that, and I've searched my email.
Okay, so I would just reach out for them and say, I haven't received anything from you.
Okay, because I don't know, does that like suspend my realtor status if I don't take that?
Have you done anything? Have they been in contact with you at all?
I know that I've been getting emails from the National Association of Realtors, but I don't think.
So I would
Did you
just
look on
reach
your
out.
profile? And, like,
If you're getting stuff from National, that would tell me that they've been in contact with you or that they've attempted contact with you. I would just reach out to them to say, hey, I want to make sure I haven't been to an orientation, taken ethics classes. Should I be doing that?
Okay. Yeah. And then, question on this. The word personal, does that mean in person or does it just mean like just you and I, whether it be phone, FaceTime, in person? What is the definition of that?
All of the above. Zoom.
And then,
Where is personal? The,
The first
oh,
personal.
the first personal meeting.
yeah, and then for the specific property, so I guess I would say I set someone up on a drip and they say, and we haven't gone through this or this yet, and say, oh, I like this house, and I pull up my computer, they pull up their computer, and we talk about it. Is that grounds for getting this signed?
Yep.
Okay.
Again, I'm not a big fan of just setting people up on drips for the sake of putting them on drips.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
fine.
Right. My preference is to have a buyer consultation. The exception is the Zillows, right? Because Zillows are a little bit of a different animal.
Yeah, because I'm thinking of two situations I have, one being someone that's looking in New Hampshire, but probably won't be able to move forward because of financing. But if I were to talk to her on the phone and be like, all right, this is something that you may be able to afford, we probably just should have this.
Well,
stuff
you
facilitated.
can't because you're not licensed in New Hampshire. So
We can't even talk about property there.
are you a licensed agent in New Hampshire?
Technically, that's performing agent duties.
Right, so all you can perform, when you're not licensed, all you can perform in either Massachusetts or New Hampshire are called ministerial duties. Think of ministerial duties as administrative type things, things, actions where you're not soliciting. You having a conversation about a specific property is considered solicitation.
Okay. Because with this person, we haven't discussed any specific properties yet. She told me what she would be looking for in New Hampshire. So the next step would be that she is looking about financing, so I could hand her off to Sean and the New Hampshire licensed agent.
Yeah, I would say that the script goes something like this, hey, you know what? We are happy to help you. The first priority is for you to get pre-approved, because if you can't pre-approved, what's the point, right? So let me put you in touch with Sean. Once you're pre-approved, let's regroup, and then we'll figure out the right strategy and approach to feed you information about properties in New Hampshire and help you buy that property.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. And then on my end, that would just be me communicating with someone else's license.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. And then my second thing would be my mom's uncle who's in Texas. We're moving slowly but surely in the right direction with him. We haven't discussed any specific properties yet, but it probably will happen soon. So could I send him this, have him fill it out and pen, scan it back to
Oh,
me?
I'd fill it all. I'd send him a copy and say, I need to have a conversation with you about this because we're going to be talking about specific properties, and the law requires me to, the first personal meeting, which can be by phone, to talk about specific properties. I need to have had this conversation.
And he can sign it, scan it, and then I can add my signature to the.
Yeah, or you can set it all up in DocuSign and just let him click and sign it that way.
Who would be able to show me how to do that?
All kinds of people.
Okay. I'll not say one of those people.
Anything
That's all my
else?
questions.
All right.
Thank you.
No, I'm good.
I didn't get any emails about any webinars tomorrow. There's past few Thursdays we've had one. We don't have one tomorrow.
None that I know of.
The
Oops.
next thing is
Yeah, we had like this.
I think I'm good. I think Matt's gonna put an offer in on Elm Street.
Matt,
Percha. He's the one that I showed it to today. So
I thought he was licensed, he's not licensed.
he's licensed, but he doesn't do anything with it. I don't even know if it's still, it might be inactive. It's probably inactive. I don't even think it's still on it, Colville anymore. No idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll let you know about that though.
Where did he get 500?
He got pre-approved for 650,000. He's been making
Good for him.
a good amount of money now. He got signed. He's working on a startup company in Cambridge.
Nice,
For the last
okay.
couple years.
Awesome. That's great. All right, enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
tomorrow. Okay. Bye, Julie. You can unmute.
I'm done.
She's like, well, can I come up?
But it was, I